This is a CBC podcast. Want a weekly roundup of the best CBC radio programming? Subscribe to the CBC Radio 1 newsletter. Get a digest of the week's top stories, read in-depth articles, listen to interviews and documentaries, and get the lowdown on upcoming stories from CBC Radio 1 that you need to hear. To subscribe, go to cbc.ca/radio and look for the subscribe button. The CBC Radio 1 newsletter. Be informed.
Anine Jain, how are you?
Gonalonkwa, which is I love you.
Agamemok. Keep going.
Diane today for Don't Touch.
This is First Words, an Indigenous language podcast by Unreserved.
Yat-e, which is a greeting.
Miigwech, which means thank you.
Hello, Danet. How are you? Sezi Lawrence Nayally ont a kon pea kingo on eji sende ont du eti jon sambak anande da masi de jon eti sena henet in. My name is Lawrence Nayally. I'm from originally the Pezekin First Nations. Some refer to as Peakin, House Beside Rock. My language is the Dechojati, and I now currently live in Yellowknife. So thank you for being with us. Currently, I work for the CBC North Branch here in Yellowknife, and I'm a host for the Trails End Afternoon Drive Home Show, and it's an English program. Before that, I was with the Native Communication Society of the Northwest Territories with their radio branch of CKLB Radio 101.1 FM, the voice of Denendeh, and I was doing a program called Decho on the Go. How I got into it really was there was a gathering in my region of Tlitiquan, Fort Simpson, and there was a Decho annual assembly, and at this assembly I spoke publicly, and it wasn't easy, but by the encouragement of my members I was able to speak. And when I spoke, something just overcame me to speak Denek, speak my language first. I did that, and somebody in the crowd was working with the Native Communication Society at that time, and a few years later I had moved to Yellowknife from my tiny community of Wrigley, and I moved out here to help raise my family, and I ended up working for an extended branch of the mines there for a little while, but I didn't like it. It felt like it wasn't my calling, like my heart just wasn't into it, and so I took time to go out in the land, and I did a prayer. Like I was brought up by my grandparents, and the way they raised me was that whenever you're having a difficult time with decisions, or if you need help in your life, use the drum, make an offering, make a tiny little fire, go out somewhere by yourself, and just connect with the Creator that way. We'll always be there listening to you and trying to find ways to help you. So I did that, and then about 3 days after, I got this call from Amos Scott, who is an amazing filmmaker and storyteller, and he does a lot of great work out here in the Northwest Territories. But he gave me a call, and he was just blooding. I answered the phone. I was like, hello, and he asked if it was Lawrence, and I said, yeah. And he was like, hey, we got a position up for a radio host announcer in the language. I was wondering if you're interested, and so I said, sure. And then they asked me, like, hey, do you have any radio experience? I told him, not really. There was a lot of trials and errors in the process because I myself was still relearning the language. What I mean by that is my first language was Dene. I was born up in Inuvik, and then I was brought to Delaney. My father had died in a tragic airplane accident back in 1984, and my grandparents were devastated. That was their only boy. And so she wanted a child, one of his kids, and my mom had a really hard time dealing with this trauma as well. But my grandmother was very insistent and kept calling, and I know it must have been a difficult decision for my mom to make, but she offered me up because I was still very young. I wasn't that attached yet. 6 months on, I was shipped out to my grandparents, and I lived with them right until their end. And so you grew up in a household with very, very traditional elders. My grandmother didn't go to residential schools. She was brought up on the land. She knew the old Dene ways, as well as my grandfather, who was a very well traveler. He would go out in the bush a long time by himself. And so he taught me how to live out in the land by myself, and he would give me advice. So I grew up in that very loving and caring household. And then, 5 years of age, you're expected to go to school. And it was there that my journey learning this language, this English language, started to come about. And it was a hard transition, but eventually I got the hang of it. The switch from speaking on radio in the language to English was, it wasn't that hard. English is kind of as equal as my Denejati, and I'm still learning a lot of Denejati words. That transition over here, when they hired me, they said, well, what can you offer? But I told them, like, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to encourage more language use on an English program. And ways of doing that is announcing the names of the communities in my language. And then, with the program that I do, I attach occasional traditional knowledge, words of the day or the week, and I just go it from there. And language is so beautiful. It really is a connection that we have with each other. I met the love of my life. I'm still with her. We've been together for, I believe, 10, 11 years now. She's the reason why I am here today. She was my rock. She was the strength I needed to become the Dene I was meant to be, I guess. And then we had a child together. Natane is the Dene name of my son, which means thunder. And his English name is Lawson, which means son of Lawrence, coincidentally. And I teach him little commands, give me that cup, please. Or, shut off the light, brush your teeth. And then I would pray with them in the language. I would get them to repeat after me. For those of us that have the language, don't be scared. Don't be shy to speak your language. And what I said there was, speak your language, because when you speak it, the elders that have gone long before us, they're smiling. I really felt like they say the land, the animals, our environment, the universe is what helped us give us our language. So, if that's the case, then we're connected all over the place with that language. My name is Lawrence Nayally, and I speak Decho Jati, the word of the day. And it's one of my favorites. It's one I grew up listening to a lot, was Ne wo ne to. Ne wo ne to means I love you. And for us, love is a big deal. It's so impactful, to say I love you to someone. It should not be empty words when you say it in the language. And then another word would be which means take good care of yourself. So when you combine those two words, is and that could be almost like a farewell, which is I love you. Take good care of yourself. Masi. Thank you.
For more CBC podcasts, go to cbc.ca/podcasts.